Chapter 7, June 19th, 1917. Dr. Harvey took a deep breath in the mid-morning, early summer air and held the corrugated grip on the walnut steering wheel of his 1916 Hudson Cabriolet. He looked through the heavy plate glass windshield as he drove south on Reservation Creek Road. The Super 6 Hudson had little trouble maintaining a speed of 30 miles per hour despite the not yet dried gumbo road surface from yesterday's rainstorm. When the journey began in Forsyth that morning, the tarmac road surface was dry and the automobile ride was smooth. After leaving town to the west on the crushed gravel road through the Yellowstone River Valley, the ride had become bumpy but not uncomfortable on the 18-inch tires, which had improved automobile rides considerably since replacing the thinner, harder tires, like those used on the first automobiles. However, since turning south on Reservation Creek Road, the ride had been bone-jarring at times as he tried to avoid sliding off the gumbo-covered road into the ditch on either side. He knew the automobile trip was quicker and more comfortable than travel in a horse-drawn wagon that some ranchers and homesteaders still used in the area. He wondered if rural roads like this would ever be built and maintained in a way equivalent to the increasingly comfortable roads in towns and cities. "I appreciate the opportunity to accompany you on this trip," he said to the neatly dressed public health nurse who was sitting on the passenger side of the front seat. She was the only public health nurse available to conduct home visits to ranchers and homesteaders in a 3-county area. She worked primarily with pregnant women, mothers, and children. Dr. Harvey had contacted her in late April after Amanda Swenson had returned to her homestead with her son Raymond. He had asked the nurse to assess the status of Mrs. Swenson's pregnancy and review plans for delivery and care of a newborn. When Johanna, the nurse, let him know she had arranged a visit, he asked to go with her so he could assess how Raymond's leg was healing. He was also interested to learn more about the work of the public health nurse program and types of patients receiving services in the area. She had driven to Forsyth that morning from her home in Miles City. When he offered to drive to the homestead, she readily accepted. During their time together so far, they had discussed some cases she had seen in recent weeks, as well as things she would like to see improved in the public health nurse program. "I am very concerned about a young girl I visited last week at a ranch east here off of the Coal Strip Road," said Johanna. "She just turned 16 and she's pregnant, about 3 or 4 months. She lives with her mother, father, younger sister, and 2 brothers, one older and one younger than her. She is not married and would not tell me who the father of her baby is. I think she may have been violated, and there may be an ongoing molestation. She needs to be in a different living situation." "Oh, my," said Dr. Harvey. "I do not know this family. Have her parents taken her to a physician? How are they helping her deal with this?" "Neither the mother nor her father have been very helpful," said Johanna. "I am afraid her father or other older brother might be the father of her baby. She is in a terrible situation. The parents have not agreed to take her for medical attention yet, but I think they will if I keep encouraging them." "Do you think they will take her to Dr. Lindbergh in Miles City? You probably work with her on some of other cases already," he said. "She would be the best physician for this young woman to see. Whether the girl and her parents decide to terminate the pregnancy or she gives birth but gives up the baby, Dr. Lindbergh would be able to help. If they wanted the pregnancy and delivery to happen away from their ranch, she could help arrange living in at the Florence Crittenden home in Helena. She would almost certainly be the best physician for this case." "I do work with Dr. Lindbergh. She is always very helpful and very caring," replied Johanna. "If this pregnancy is the result of molestation, then the State Children's Services Agency and law enforcement should also be involved," he observed. "I think the parents are trying to look the other way, deny the presence of a problem, avoid involvement of legal and other agencies," said Johanna. "I hope the parents take their daughter to a physician. I plan to see them again tomorrow." Dr. Harvey didn't reply. He had been watching for a landmark Miss Swenson had described to him. A plateau to the left shaped like a wolf's head in profile, with an indentation serving as the eye, must be the landmark. The Swenson homestead driveway was due west of the wolf's eye. He turned onto the even, bumpier track, which wound back and forth as it climbed, descended, and climbed again for about half a mile. Finally, they reached a crest, and he and Johanna looked down into a lovely small valley. He drove down the hill the last 200 yards and noted a house, a barn, a large garden area, and low structures he guessed to be coverings for a root cellar and a well. Beside the house, a lilac bush was in bloom. He parked the Hudson in a flat area beside the home, a one-story wood-frame building with a peaked roof and the glass windows Amanda had described to him at May's house. On the porch, Amanda, now obviously pregnant, was standing with her arm around Raymond's shoulder. She said, "Hello, you made it." He and Johanna stepped out of the automobile and said hello in return and walked towards the porch. They drew the intense interest of the border collie, black with white patches, who bounced between the two of them, sniffing at shoes and legs, running ahead a few places, then returning to examine the visitors further. Dr. Harvey held out his hand, palm up. Then he rubbed the top of the dog's head, gently at first, but then more firmly. He asked, "What is this handsome fellow's name?" Raymond, who had used crutches to descend 2 steps from the porch to the ground, replied, "His name is Bingo. He likes to have his head rubbed." Dr. Harvey was kneeling beside the dog and rubbing his head and neck and back by the time Raymond arrived to join in petting the ecstatic canine. He said, "It's good to see you moving so well, Raymond. Maybe you and Bingo would show me around for a few minutes while your mother and the nurse have a chance to talk." To Amanda, he said, "You may have met already. This is Johanna. She is very knowledgeable and can share some helpful information with you." Amanda replied, "Yes, very nice to see you." He gestured to Johanna and said, "Please come in. Would you like some tea?" The 2 women went into the house. Raymond began crutch walking slowly to the right of the house, pointing to highlights of the homestead from the perspective of a 7-year-old boy for whom this was the world as he knew it. "There is the barn and the plow the horses pull and the chicken house and the outhouses," he said, pointing in turn to each. Dr. Harvey was pleased to see how seemingly pain-free the boy was. He planned to inspect the cast, which covered his leg from above the knee to below the ankle, before departing. He asked, "Do you feel any pain in your leg?" "I feel some if I put my foot on the ground, but Mom keeps telling me not to do that. She says I must use these crutches and not stand on my foot," said Raymond. "I'm glad you are listening to your mother. You'll need to use the crutches for many more weeks. But by the time school starts again, you should be able to walk without them," he said reassuringly. At the crest of a plateau about 150 yards east of the barn, Axel rode into view on a large brown horse. He carried a basket in one hand. When he got to the barn, he said, "Hi, Doctor. I have some wild strawberries here. Mom thought you and the nurse might like to have a bowl of these." He handed the basket to Dr. Harvey and tied the horse to the rail on the hitching post beside the barn. Dr. Harvey tasted one of the small, sweet strawberries and said, "Delicious. Thank you for picking these. Did you need to go far?" "No," replied Axel. "There are lots of berries on the bench, and they are ripening now. Dad grows watermelons up there, too, but coyotes sometimes get to the ripe melons before we do." "Where does your land go from here?" asked Dr. Harvey. Axel pointed first to the east and then to the north and south as he described the extent of the homestead. When he pointed west, he said, "Our land ends just at the crest of the hill where the driveway comes down towards our house." Dr. Harvey was puzzled and asked, "Does your land include the entire driveway over to Reservation Creek Road?" "No. Dad and a neighbor have an agreement he calls a handshake agreement for us to use the path from the crest to the main road. It's not easy to get to the road in the winter or after a heavy rain, but it would be harder if our driveway had to be farther south," Axel replied. "Is your father away?" asked Dr. Harvey. "He has our overland down in Ashland, where he is working again for a few days. When he gets back, we'll probably be doing work on the driveway while the weather is good. Need to smooth some spots on the way to the main road," replied Axel. "That's the path I have used to Ash Grove School, but next year I need to get to Howard School for 6th grade. Raymond had listened quietly, but he had been looking at the strawberries throughout the discussion. He interrupted, "Let's get these into Mom. She made some shortcake, too." Dr. Harvey and Axel followed Raymond to the house, with Bingo darting between the 3 of them as they offered pats on the head and scratches behind the ears. Inside the house, Axel placed the basket of berries in the kitchen counter, and Raymond eagerly asked, "Are we going to have strawberry shortcake?" Amanda stopped talking to Johanna and said yes, if our guests would like to try some. She instructed the 2 boys to go wash their hands, then turned to her guests. "Would you like to try some strawberries on shortcake? It only takes a few minutes." Johanna said, "Please, let me help remove the stems." While the 2 women prepared the berries, Dr. Harvey glanced around the inside of the house. The main living area had only a table and 4 chairs separating the kitchen from a space where a cushioned chair and a rocking chair sat on a rug covering part of the wood plank floor. In the kitchen was a stove with the side-by-side compartments, one an oven and the other for wood burning. The compartments were topped by a cast iron plate on which sat a frying pan and a metal teapot. Also in the kitchen was a sink with running water and counters on either side. The view through the glass window above the sink was towards the barn. Kerosene lamps were mounted on the walls. No electric items or telephone were present. He guessed the motor in the well house outside must be battery powered to allow pumping water to the home. He presumed the two interior doors led to bedrooms. His gaze was particularly drawn to the back baby grand piano in the corner of the living area. He remarked, "What a beautiful piano." When the bowls with berries and shortcake were ready to be served, Amanda called to the boys, who were sitting on the porch steps, "Come and get some berries." They came into the house only long enough for each to get a bowl and spoon and then return to the porch to eat. The three adults sat at the dining table in the kitchen. "I trust you had a useful talk," said Dr. Harvey. "It is so wonderful to visit with another woman, especially Johanna, who shares so much information," said Amanda. "Do you think Raymond's leg is healing well? He seems healthy to me. Is there anything more I should be doing?" "He is doing very well," he replied. "I will examine his leg and the cast more closely before we leave today." After eating the berries and then assessing Raymond's leg and cast, Dr. Harvey thanked Amanda and assured her the leg had healed nicely thus far. He said, "I think he will be ready to walk without crutches by the time school begins in September. You are doing a terrific job." Johanna and Dr. Harvey each used the outhouse before departing. They thanked Amanda and the two boys for being splendid hosts. Then they drove away from the neat, clean house in the beautiful small valley and down the long, bumpy driveway to Reservation Creek Road. "What is your estimate for when she will deliver?" he asked as they began the return trip north. "Her last menstrual period was in mid-December, so I think the baby will come in September, maybe early October," she replied. "She has given birth twice before, so she knows what's in store for her. We discussed finding a place in town to live as her due date approaches. She is strongly inclined to be in her own home. When Raymond was born, Axel was the only one with her at home during the delivery. She is a brave woman. However, beginning in September, she wants to live in a place closer to Howard School so Axel would not need to ride a horse 10 miles each day for 6th grade classes. Raymond would be able to attend 1st grade at Howard, too. If she does this, she would be much closer to town when the baby comes. I am going to visit her again in August to learn more of her plans." While he listened, he pictured Marie at this stage of her pregnancy. She was so happy, so optimistic. They both were. He grew increasingly concerned about Amanda giving birth unattended, whether 5 or 15 miles from town, without a telephone, electricity, or automobile. "Look out!" yelled Johanna. The Hudson had drifted to the right edge of the road, and the passenger side tires were only a few inches from the deep ditch paralleling the road. He heard Johanna's warning and saw how close the automobile was to the ditch. He jerked the steering wheel to the left quickly, returning the tires to ruts on the road. "Sorry," he said. "I was listening too carefully to your report. I'll concentrate on the road." "What do you think of her plans for delivery and getting her boys closer to school?" asked Johanna. "I am concerned," he said. "However, her options are limited. After you see her in August, I'd like to talk with you to reassess her options." After a minute, he continued, "When we get to the River Valley Road, I'd like to stop briefly to visit Herman Mueller and his niece, Gerd. Would you have time to do that before we return to town?" "That would be fine," she replied. "I'll be going straight to Miles City from Forsyth. I have no other appointments scheduled for today. I'll see Dr. Lindbergh tomorrow morning and then drive back to Colstrip Road to talk with the pregnant teenager and her parents." "Good," he said. "I'd like for you to meet Gerd. She is 18 and came here from Germany right before the war began. Her mother, Herman Mueller's sister, wanted to move her entire family here, perhaps sensing the tragic events that were coming. Now Gerd is here, but her family has not been able to come. She is understandably depressed, having trouble eating and sleeping. I want to check on her and also see if she is someone you might add to your home visit list." "I look forward to meeting her," said Johanna. As they descended from the plateau toward the river valley, they saw the tree-lined river in the distance, smelled the grass hay